My name is Harrison Sear. I'm a student at Community Montessori School. I intern at the Carnegie Center, and I'm interviewing Joyce Ogden. Is there anything you'd like to say first?
Say, or can I ask a question?
You may ask a question.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious how you, or why you chose the work that you chose to inquire, to interview the artist about, or why you chose my piece. What was it about it in the piece that interested you?
Well, your piece, I just stood out to me. I mean, I thought it was very fascinating. I loved how you just created like the hanging glass object with the twine, and you created it, and it looks so like strong and sturdy, and yet elegant. And you created like the stand for it, which is it's like, I'm not sure what metal it is, but it looks like like steel or something that you see like on a railroad. And it just looks. I just thought it was very well put together and incredible and beautiful and yet strong.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And is there any other questions you'd like to ask? Okay. Well, then my first question is the name of your piece, Science Lab Study Number 1. What was the meaning behind the name?
Well, that has to do partly with the materials that are in it and where they came from. It's the first piece that I've made with pieces that I've gotten from an old university science lab. The university where I teach, Spalding University, built a new science lab, so they had a lot of science lab equipment that they no longer needed. And I collected those materials, which is very unusual for me because I have not in the past worked with found materials. I usually create my own forms. But I was very intrigued with the function and the form and the material. And so I thought I might like to work with those pieces. And so this was the first piece that came out of it. And because I wasn't sure if I was going to continue, I just wanted to give it just a really straightforward and basic title.
Okay. The second question is, what was the original idea and image that you started with for the piece, and how has the piece evolved from that idea?
Great question. So in these glass forms in particular, they're glass funnels, really is what they are. And the shape was a shape that I've been attracted to for many years. And then I'm also very attracted to forms that are translucent, that light can pass through. And I also like working in multiples. So when I put all of those things together, that's what attracted me to the form. And so what started this piece were those actual forms. I also like to work with things that hang, that can make use of gravity. And these forms were also designed to be suspended. And so I knew that I wanted to suspend them, and that they lent themselves to being possibly a group like a cluster, which is, I look at forms in nature. And so I think, natural forms that cluster and hang and group together. So I kind of knew I wanted to take it in that direction. What changed was originally I thought that it would just stand alone and hang, be suspended from the ceiling. And I was working on it for towards the show at the Carnegie, or at the same time that the show came up, but hanging it from the ceiling wasn't an option. So then I needed to come up with a different solution. And what was wonderful in the end was it wasn't really a problem. I think it actually forced me to go in a different direction that was beneficial. So then I came up with the idea of the stand that it would hang from. And so I went back to looking at this science lab equipment that's kind of dated to the 1950s, and there were beautiful forms, and some of the stands were just magnificent. And some of them are fabricated or cast metal, and many of them are black. And so I used that as my inspiration for the design of the stand. So that's really what evolved, and I think, as you so eloquently said, really gives a real grace to the piece, because on the one hand it is really delicate with the glass, and yet you're not sure how heavy or light the glass is The steel frame has these graceful lines, and yet you know it's steel, so it's strong. So that play, I think, worked out very nicely.
Our third question is, what inspired you to become an artist, and at what time did you start doing art?
I guess I would say my parents inspired me to be an artist. So in one way, you could say that I started at a very young age, and that I was always encouraged to be creative. And my parents were not artists, but they were both very creative. In fact, my mother, she was always doing some kind of needlework. That was back in the 70s, and needlepoint was real popular and that kind of thing. So she was always doing that. My father was usually often making something or working with wood. And so, my sister and I were always encouraged. And then when I graduated high school, I needed to make a decision about what I wanted to do. And it was really at that point that I knew I wanted to continue to study art.
Our fourth question is, if you could tell an inspiring artist one thing, what would it be?
One thing?
One thing.
How about two?
Two's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
Well, I think that if you want to be a professional artist, first and foremost, you have to be completely passionate about it. It is hard work, and it's a strange thing to do. And you'll know if you're passionate about it or not. That's really what it takes. But I also think that then in today's world, it takes an interesting skill set to be a professional artist. That it's not, it's not that model of the crazy person that suddenly gets discovered and is famous. I think that's a false model to follow. But that you need to be very organized. That you need to be able to write well. That you need to be able to speak well about your work. You need to be able to do, and related to that is promoting your work and marketing your work and having even just good social skills so that you're comfortable when you meet people and you need to talk to them about this very strange thing that you do, so it doesn't sound quite so strange.
Okay. And our last question is art what you do for a full-time job?
Yes and no, because I'm a university professor, I get to teach art all the time, and I think that's very directly related to my art making. So I'm always around art. I'm not always doing my own art, but my own art and what I do with it enters into the classroom, and then in turn, what I teach and then what the students do comes back and influences my work. It's really, really hard to be an artist who completely supports yourself and makes art all the time. And I think there's different ways that artists go about finding ways to continue doing their art all the time.
What is it like teaching art to, people who have so many different views of what art is and, what they want it to be?
It's exciting. I think that I'm there to help them form and develop ideas and to develop their viewpoint of what art is to them and what the different possibilities are. And I also, and that's for art majors, but I also teach, and this is really, I think, really important. I teach non-art majors who, as part of their general studies, are required to take an art class. And to me, that's very rewarding and very important because artists need people who understand and appreciate art. And so to have the opportunity to do that and to introduce that to students who might be nursing majors or science majors or education majors is very rewarding.